Konnichiwa.
Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast.
Kia ora, Catherine. Happy Golden Week.
Konnichiwa, Jane. Yes, happy Golden Week, isn't it?
Well,
Such good weather.
it's beautiful. I have been watching the news reports for days as they pick apart the weather. Is it going to be okay for Golden Week on a daily basis? And just to check and see, no, it's actually going to be fine. It's
Yeah, that's lovely,
okay.
isn't it? And they also report the traffic going north and the
Oh,
traffic
I'm so
going
excited by
south.
the traffic jam reports. It's
Every
like,
single time there's a holiday, there's a traffic jam report. It's looking
yeah, so how about that the pandemic is officially over in Japan? Finally?
yes. Anyone listening to this in New Zealand will go, what?
What?
Didn't that happen a little while ago?
Yeah.
No, over here it's
No.
been going and going, and still daily reports every morning. NHK
How many
news
people
is
have COVID?
how many
Yes.
people got COVID yesterday,
Mm.
how
Yep.
many people in each city, each region, and you're
Yeah.
thinking someone's counting those up because we know they're getting them by fax, and someone is counting those up. They're not electronic, I
Yeah.
don't think,
So
but
it's been a long,
been a long
3
time.
years for the people who have to deal with this, which is the public servants and especially the local hokenjos in each city. And I know someone who does this job, just insane workload that they have had to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you to them,
Insane.
Otsukaresama. And
Mm.
as you were saying, though, from the 8th of May, all of those recordings, restrictions into Japan are lifted, right? It's
Yeah.
just bliss.
Well, actually, there was a fun little thing that came out saying, surprise, we've decided to not require PCR tests or proof of vaccination a week early. And that was last Friday. And that was just before Golden Week. They released that to, I guess, smooth the return of the many, many, many people who'll be traveling overseas in Golden Week. But they really waited till the last minute to say that. And then sort of like rushed out the doors to not have to answer any of the phone calls of angry people, I'm sure, who
Yeah.
prepared themselves for coming back to Japan if they needed a PCR test or something. So
That's right. You reminded me that was April 28th, that Friday, and it came out and was like, wow, gosh, okay. So all these people who had already booked PCRs, if they hadn't ever been vaccinated, had to just didn't have to do it, right? They could
Yeah.
release that from their checklist to do. And yeah, so finally Japan is now, you don't have to enter with a PCR test or a vaccination certificate. It's awesome.
yay, it must be so going to be smooth, hopefully. Oh my God,
Imagine all those people at Narita and at Haneda airports going, oh my goodness, what do we do now? We used to
Yeah.
stand here and wait for people to come through. They
and
can go
wave
back to
people
regular jobs.
all around that maze inside the airport. I remember the scrutiny when we came back from Sweden. There's the scrutiny of my PCR tests and things. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to let me in the country? Am I going to be separated from my family? None of that anymore. Woohoo for that. Oh my God. And so, here in Fukushima, though, you wouldn't really know. People are still masked to the hilt, and my kids go to school, and my son reported the other day, 4 people in my class are not wearing masks now. So it was just him, for a while there.
Well, in Tokyo, it's definitely different. Taxi drivers are wearing their masks, but passengers are not. I'm not wearing mine. I feel a bit like a rebel, but actually it's all right, and I don't need to. I have it sort of holding it, so it's like I've got it in case you tell me I have to wear
Prepared to
it.
be
I'm
compliant
prepared.
if
Yeah,
needed, right?
but not wearing it, and it feels quite liberating. And I
It
know New
is.
Zealand, you're way ahead of us, I know, but actually it's quite cool now to know that we're not having to do that. So when you
yes.
arrive into Japan, you're going to be pleasantly surprised that you can walk around. Of course, always as usual, be courteous, and if someone says we wear masks in this meeting, or you can see that people are, then perhaps do it and ask for permission to take it off. If it's that kind of business situation, there's still that you come across, but basically, it is lifting, and I can see the easing around town. That is for sure.
I can't see the easing around here, but nobody has complained to me about me choosing to not wear a mask. So everyone sort of respected
Or giving you a
everybody's
look.
choices. Nobody's given me a look. I really couldn't care, but like I'm not putting my mask back on unless I have to, right? Unless it's a hospital or
Yeah.
something, then I do. But yeah, actually, people are just sort of getting on with doing what they want to do, and I think this is where we want to be, right? People
Yeah.
just doing what they actually want to do. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Also, just noticing a lot more tourists around town. I'm hearing
Mm.
groups speaking Mandarin, or maybe it is another language that I'm hearing as well. So the groups are coming back, which is kind of half sad, but also yay! It's good to have the tourists come back and spend some
Mm.
dosh here as well, which is great to see. Japan
Yeah.
is back.
Yeah.
It never really
Oof.
went away, but it's definitely back on track. I can say that as far as Tokyo is concerned. We're
Mm.
all ikishiteru,
Yeah, it's
alive and
great.
well and living in Tokyo. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So who do we have on the show this week for our listeners?
Oh, yes. So we've got Yoshifumi Imamura, who is at GNS Geo40. He was previously at NZTE. He's got a bunch of stuff that we didn't even know
Mm.
ourselves, Jane. We're getting educated for the last 12, 13, 14 months now doing the podcast, but
Yeah.
Yoshifumi brought it. There was a
Yeah.
lot of interesting nuggets and information in this episode.
Yeah. I was very, very surprised some of the things he said. So I can't wait for you all to hear this. And especially if you might be thinking geothermal energy, I don't care about that. Well, I think you should, because New Zealand is a leader in this. Who knew that? New Zealand is a leader in geothermal energy. Wow. Let's
Yeah,
hear
it's
it
great.
from
Let's hear it.
Yoshifumi. Kia ora, Yoshifumi. Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much, Jane and Kathleen, to make me join your fantastic and lovely podcast. I'm very honored to be here.
Such beautiful words. Usually our guests don't say such great things when we start.
Thank you.
I'm
Lovely.
Japanese.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking,
Arigatou
my
gozaimasu.
brain is always thinking Japanese way. So
Yeah, what is that? Tell us, what are you always thinking? You're always thinking of ways to give a compliment to someone else?
Yeah. Japanese tend to be say thank you and sorry so easily.
Right.
And
You're always
why
looking for a
we-
way to say thank you
Yeah.
and sorry.
It's
Yeah.
a bit of funny, but sometimes I'm appreciating these things, but I say thank you and sorry almost automatically. That's
Right.
the Japanese way of thinking.
There we go. A
And-
little cultural insight for us at the start of the episode. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. So anyway, let's get to our warm-up question. And today, our question is, tell us your favorite onsen in Japan. I heard you like onsen, right? The hot springs.
Yeah, I must say the best onsen I love is Kusatsu.
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 Ah, I
onsen.
thought you might
Yeah.
say Kusatsu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should say there are so many beautiful and good onsens. But
Yes.
for me personally, Kusatsu is the best because that is relatively closer to my home.
Always important. Yes.
Yeah, Kusatsu is in Gunma Prefecture, and we can go there by cars or buses in 3 to 4 hours.
Oh.
And also Kusatsu Onsen's hot spring water is very beautiful, very hot, and good for Japanese. And Kusatsu town itself is beautiful, and especially if we go there during winter, we can see beautiful mountains covered by snow, and this atmosphere of very cold circumstances and hot spring gives us very good combination and make us very comfortable. And in Japan, there are so many onsens. So if we lived in western part, I might say Gero Onsen, which
Gero
is in
onsen.
Gifu Prefecture.
Mhm.
And if I were in Kyushu, of course, Beppu, sister
Yeah.
city of New Zealand, Rotorua, is one of the
Yeah.
best. So we are Japanese are very lucky since we are very close to these onsens.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
all have their different sort of personalities, don't they? The kind of water they have, or the kind of things that they're good for.
That's
So
right.
you can really, so some New Zealand people maybe can't imagine why you would go to all of these different onsens. And isn't it just hot water? But no, it's a different experience in each place. So you can really enjoy, once you get to know it, the more you can enjoy it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some people listening might hear you say very hot, and they may have had experience of onsen and think, Oh, aren't they all hot? But you said very hot. So perhaps that's even, 40 something degrees, 42, 43, 44,
Mm.
maybe really, really hot.
Yeah, Japanese tend to love hotter water, but it's not that hot.
Oh, okay.
But 40 something, just a
Yeah,
40.
it would be
Okay.
over 42, right? 42
Yeah.
is kind of the sort of average for
Yeah,
That's
I'm
right.
so
onsen, right?
used to it being hot now. Even at home, when I've got the shower water or the bath water, mine's really set at a hot temperature. I better not disclose what it is, but it's more than 43. Yeah,
Wow.
I love
Wow.
it really, really hot. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Have you got
Yeah.
a favorite onsen, Catherine?
Oh,
You've been
well, I
to?
have to, of course, you're going to talk about up where you live, I'm sure, and of course, I love those onsens that you've introduced me to up there. But in the neighborhood where I am, in Nishiazabu, just near Roppongi Hills, there is a new complex opening up soon called Teruma. I'm not sure, it's based on like Roman thermal pools, and it looks like it's a number of different kinds of pools inside this building. And it's supposed to open in April. And so I can't wait to see what that is like. Like it's literally 100 meters from me. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that opening. And that may become one of my, new favorites, Jane.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, it might
Right.
be. I wonder where they'll get their water from. It
I
might be a
wonder. I don't
Jinko
know.
onsen,
It
maybe.
might be a Jinko onsen, but it'll be interesting to try. How about you? Of course, it's your hometowns areas, yes?
Well, yes. Also, I quite like Misasa Onsen in Tottori,
Oh,
which
Misasa.
is quite yeah, it's another beautiful area where you can sit outside and enjoy. I think that's what I really like is somewhere where you can enjoy the outdoor bath, right? So you're sitting outside, it's cold, but you're sitting in this beautiful hot water and you can really enjoy looking at the scenery, whether it's snow or autumn leaves. In summer, not so much. But the great thing about taking a hot spring in summer is that it feels really cool once you get out of the hot spring, right? If you've been in the 42, 43-degree bath, and you walk outside and you go, oh, it's not so hot out here. It feels quite cool coming out of the onsen. So a lot of New Zealanders wouldn't think of going in a hot bath on a summer's day when it's 32 degrees outside, but
It's
can
actually
be
quite
quite refreshing.
refreshing.
Quite
Yeah.
refreshing.
It's like they recommend having a hot drink on a cold day actually refreshes you more than a cold drink. That's what they do in India, apparently.
Hot drinks on hot days.
Yeah,
Yes.
hot drinks on
Yes.
hot days. Is that what I said? Did I say
No.
cold days?
Yes. Anyway, I think we know
you.
what you're trying to say there.
Thank
Catherine.
you. Yeah, I mean hot drinks on hot days. Exactly. Thank you
There
so
you go.
much. Well, Yoshifumi Imamura, welcome to the show again. And you are now the country manager at New Zealand Crown Research Institute, GNS and GO. Is it GO40?
Yes.
Yeah. But you had a long time working also at NZTE for about 9 years, or from 9 years ago, right? And so we're really interested to have you on the show and talk about your experiences there and how you've helped New Zealand companies and what you're doing now. So we've got a bio for you and we will put that in our show notes for later so that everyone can read up about you. But tell us a bit about your background and, your inspiration or your energy to take up this GNS role, GO40 role as well. And what kind of work you do for them in Japan now?
Thank you very much, Catherine. Yeah, I'm a Japan country manager for both New Zealand Crown Research Institute, GNS Science, and a private company, Geo40. My mission is launching their businesses in Japan and make them sustainable. And it is just a start. I started this responsibility since June last year, and just 9 months has passed. But I'm trying to make it successful as soon as possible. It may be a little bit longer answering your question, but I have aspiration to make a bridge between two countries with different cultures. My career started from a trader in Japanese Sogo Shosha trading company, Itochu. And I always want to be a bridge between different countries and Japan. And connecting New Zealand and Japan, this is something that I want to do. And Japan and New Zealand are quite similar countries in this geological topologies, and the business related to geothermal is something that we can do more. So that's why I'm here and I'm working for two organizations.
You're in the right
Japan.
place, and you're on the right podcast with wanting to build bridges between New Zealand and Japan. That's one of our mokyo, one of our goals for this podcast as well. So tell us a little bit more about what is going on with the geothermal business between New Zealand and Japan. I don't think many people know about this. What's happening?
As everybody knows, in general, society, global society, want to shift fossil energy, thermal, electricity society to renewable energy, sustainable energy or electricity. And in Japan, Japanese government is making effort to shift fossil energy dependent electricity status into renewable energy electricity generation. At this moment, electricity from geothermal in Japan is just 0.3% and trying to make it three-fourths to 1% by 2030.
Right.
And on the other hand, are you aware in New Zealand how many percent of electricity is from geothermal?
I
No idea.
Question.
Mostly hydro, but geothermal's probably getting close. Maybe
I'm going to chuck out the number 5%.
Oh,
20%.
Yeah, Catherine is true. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most of electricity from New Zealand generated by hydro, which is 50. But geothermal is second largest chunk, and it is about 20%. 20% of New Zealand electricity is from geothermal. And that capacity is twice as big as Japanese.
Really?
Yeah, Japan is, while we are speaking hot spring and onsen talk in the beginning of this episode, Japan is quite geothermal rich country.
Yeah.
Japanese are not making full use of that resource to electricity. So that's why Japanese government is trying to make an effort, and they're looking for every support and assistance from the society. And Japanese government is also spending a lot of taxes for making it a boost. New Zealand is a good country to share its experience and technology and also sciences knowledge for the growth of Japanese geothermal, because New Zealand had been making effort for this. And did you know New Zealand invented a good system of geothermal, and we started world first for geothermal developments from we call water dominated wells.
As they say in Japanese.
I mean, in the world, it was Italian who started geothermal power station first in the world, but their Italian wells are steam dominated wells, we call it. So when we dig the well in Italy, there is only steam is coming up. But in Japan and New Zealand, we came out from hot water as well, right? And that hot water damages electricity generation turbine, this fans. So we had to separate hot water and steam. So we couldn't do that, but in New Zealand, Kiwi did it in 1955.
1955.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wasn't 6 years ago. Yeah, that was invention. Amazing. And because of that, Japanese also could generate electricity from geothermal. And Japanese first geothermal power plant was built in 1966, which was 8 years later than New Zealand. So New Zealand started this geothermal power station from hot water dominated 8 years faster than Japan, and grown twice as big as Japanese today.
The kind of senpai, we're the
Wow.
sort
Yeah.
of elder in this relationship on the geothermal.
That's
Wow.
right. Yeah, and
Harnessing
actually,
it.
if I say correctly, Japanese and in the beginning, Japanese did catch up technology, and it was a really time period which Japanese and New Zealand Kiwis are competing together. But unfortunately, in Japan, in 1990s, geothermal power plants development had been stopped because Japanese government focused on nuclear power for
Wow.
2 decades
Yes,
since
yes.
1990s.
Right. That was what has stopped the
Right.
development of the geothermal, was focusing more on the nuclear
That's right.
power,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
They got
Yeah.
distracted by
Yeah.
that.
And
And we know how
yeah.
that turned out, don't we? Now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during that time, New Zealand capacity exceeded Japan.
Mm.
And I think, today, Japanese government has changed its policy direction. And of course, they are looking for geothermal again. And this is the situation. So, in my small capacity, I can be works better for Japanese government and as well as good for trade to New Zealand as well. So I'm feeling I'm doing very exciting.
Very
Yeah,
exciting.
this is exciting.
Controversial, but
A great place, great time. It's
Yeah.
perfect timing.
As a Japanese, I should be humble, but
No.
I'm feeling it is really.
We're really
great
glad to
time.
hear you say that you're excited and that it is a great time and you're really enjoying it, because that's what it's about. If you bring your passion to your work and you really love this, it's shining through, and it's going to really help New Zealand and Japan have this bridge on geothermal.
Yeah, I think I can
Fantastic.
be a bridge. But
Yes.
at the same time, what I'm thinking is I shouldn't be a bottleneck between two countries because I'm only one person here to work for this GNS. So as a business, I'm always trying to make it something bigger. So if what I'm doing today goes better, of course, I want to invite expatriates from New Zealand as well. There are good scientists in that country. So I think it is good to invite them and working together with me.
Yes.
Well, we're excited to hear your dreams for the future here.
Yeah.
And like opportunities for scientists in New Zealand are very sort of thin on the ground, I feel. So yeah, it's great that you can work together with scientists from New Zealand and scientists from Japan, and everybody wins. Yeah, that's fantastic.
You can do it. Yeah, we talked a lot about onsen at the beginning, hot pools, and a lot of that area in Japan is regulated. There are lots of rules in the way that you can use the water. So is part of your job now to try and expand Japan's percentage up to 1% by 2030? Is that to try and work with the onsen owners, work with the government to try and help more of the New Zealand knowledge and expertise, help them to broaden their mind? Is that what you are also doing here?
Yeah, I can do that aspect as well. Mainly GNS science and geophoria as well are good for subsurface sciences, technologies. And our strength is making under the ground subsurface situation visible. And in fact, we cannot go into underground to 2000 meter or 3000 meter physically, right? So we should analyze or speculate. And that is a part science can make it happen. But at the same time, we look at the other aspects like legitimate legal things and also doing good with community. And in that aspect as well, New Zealand could improve last decades. And in the beginning, there are objections in New Zealand as well. Landowners or in New Zealand as well, hot spring owners. So these people had objection for geothermal in the beginning, but we changed society's mind in New Zealand for supporting geothermal developments.
Right.
So we could do that kind of thing in Japan as well. And in fact, in Japan, there are no geothermal law in this country, although we have onsen, protecting
Right.
onsen laws in Japan. So
Yeah.
I think growing geothermal electricity in Japan is challenging. And from that a social system aspect, Japan should change. And New Zealand could do something, or we could share the experience with Japanese as well, I think.
Yeah, it's not just the technology as well, it's how does this work with the
Right.
people who have these resources, yeah, and how that affects their lives, and do they even want this, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Even though the government says we need it. Yeah.
right.
To get them on
Yeah.
side too is important.
Yeah.
And good thing of GNS is there is a place called Wairake Research Center.
Mhm.
And in that place, there are such different specialists in one place
Mm.
in that research center.
Mhm.
And these scientists can get together and they can discuss the different aspects of geothermal developments, and they can conclude good and right things by discussion. That is also different. And in Japan, there are so many different scientists in Japan, this big country, but I should say New Zealand is quite concentrated in one place and discussing each other. And I was in Wairaki Research Institute last month and found that there is a space cafeteria and they can get together every day for morning tea and afternoon tea as well. In that cafeteria, there is a table tennis corner or some pool bar and also wines as well.
So they communicate over lunch and over little table tennis and sport. They're always together sharing information.
Yeah.
Right.
And a few decades ago in California, in IT companies are doing such things in California, right? But New Zealand had been doing such things for decades. So
Natural.
That's very natural. Right?
Natural to us. So in Japan, are you saying in Japan maybe not the opportunity for all the scientists to be together?
Right. Yeah. Japanese, we like formal and very always serious. And we have an association or conference a year, but that's very formal. By getting together, of course, we are sometimes drinking, but most of the time that is very, very, very formal.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think at one of those conferences you presented a paper about the way it's done in New Zealand.
Yes, in Japanese Geothermal Researchers Association. The association has annual conference, and I'm always trying to share what Kiwis are doing a good job.
Does that association have a mascot? Because lots of associations have mascot, right? Like a
Yurukyara or something.
Yurukyara.
Oh no! I think
bad.
That is very
Maybe
good idea.
it needs a character that might change the atmosphere a bit.
I see. Oh, that's very good idea.
Why don't you suggest that? But you must have so many Kiwis coming here too. What do the Kiwis think when the scientists come here and they see Japan? What do they not know about Japan or get surprised about when they arrive here?
Yeah, I assume Kiwis in New Zealand doesn't know what is Japanese. Actually, I think they feel some challenge to communicate with Japanese. But when they come to Japan, Japanese always trying to communicate with them, although our English is not very perfect and very natural, but they are trying to help Kiwis as well. And that is same as what they are doing in your country as well, right? So probably in the end of the day, I believe Kiwis find Japanese are the same nature as Kiwi are doing. Yeah, they will see some similarity maybe
Yeah.
in Japanese, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You had quite a bit of time before GNS and Geo40 at NZTE, New Zealand Trade Enterprise in Tokyo. How was that experience for you? Any insights or tips that you have learnt from those days that could help Kiwi people from the way that you did the business, introduced business then over those years?
Some Kiwis are trying to learn Japanese before they come. I mean, for the business matter as well, they read Japanese books and trying to follow Japanese way, and that makes sometimes a little bit funny. But in the end of the day, we should understand we are the same. We are the same nature, and also having said that, I hope both countries should respect the others' culture as well. So if we don't forget respect for the others, I think that is good. I hope I'm answering your question. But
It's really important, very basic, but sometimes overlooked point is to just keep the mutual respect. It's not about learning the language so much, it's about respecting the culture. And so I think one of the other things you've managed to do here, Yoshifumi, is to find an office. You found an office space and you're there working. How do you find a space to work from, a physical space in Japan? So maybe if there's some New Zealanders who want to come here and they don't just want to come in and out, but they'd like to find the space to have their business here, what would you recommend that they do to do that?
yeah, probably I'm answering something funny thing, but yeah, I'm speaking name card. We Japanese loves to exchange name card, and we must put physical location here, right?
Yes.
So I think, yeah, I'm aware many QE's company doesn't put their office location here. So in order to get trust or credibility from the other end of Japanese, I think New Zealand company should have a physical location, office location here in Tokyo or here in Japan, any place in Japan.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And exchanging name card is first thing we should do in this country at business scene, right? So having office here is very important.
Yeah.
That's why I got GNS and Geo40's office in Shibuya. Yeah, this Shibuya location is closer to New Zealand embassy and also my house as well. So this is very ideal place.
Clever.
Very clever.
And every time I got visitors from New Zealand, GNS and Geo40, I always invite my colleagues to my office, and that makes them comfortable, I believe, and they can work at my office, GNS and Geo40 office as well. I think that makes a little bit a difference for these visitors to work in this country. Having an office is really important for me in that sense.
Exactly. And the business cards, you're right. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, I've met with people and they said, oh, it's not QR code, not digital business card. No. In Japan, please still bring a physical card. So even a meeting in the last 48 hours they had no cards with them, just on their iPhone. So that was fine, but it takes time to find your camera to scan. And so do please come with your business cards to Japan, like physical cards. It's
interesting point
here
about having your address on them, though, like that is seen as a way to build trust, to show you are a real company, you do actually exist, and that still having a physical location potentially in Japan is valued as well.
Yeah,
it's not something that a lot of people would know, I think. So yeah, great nugget there. And get it in Shibuya near the New Zealand embassy.
That's very good thinking.
Yeah. And also we had that one from Adam saying, checking that your address is not blacklisted in some way, making sure that it's hasn't been used for criminal activities in the past before you started renting it? Do you know that about your office space?
That previous people who used the office were not naughty, bad people, right?
Oh,
If it's someone like that, sometimes the building gets a kind of bad mark, batsu, right? A bad mark. So when
mm.
you have to be careful about that, because people check the address and find out it's okay. It's not blacklisted. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Mm.
that's important. And Japanese has some prejudice in the location, and if a company's office is located near Tokyo Station or Otemachi, we feel that's something big and established company. And Shibuya is sometimes called Bit Valley for information technology companies. So if company is in Shibuya, that is something new and
Yeah.
entrepreneurial
And cool,
company.
right? Very
Interesting.
up
Yeah,
hip.
so it's
Yeah.
always positive and
Yeah.
negative thing in the location, but so we should be careful.
That's why I always think the New Zealand embassy location is actually really great, that it's in a kind of funky and fun area. It sort of reflects New Zealand quite well, that we're a little bit different.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, great. Good nugget of information there. Thank you for that.
Totally.
Any other things that you noticed, especially I think if you were working with a lot of different Kiwi businesses during your time at NZTE, did you notice any other themes or issues that would often come up with those businesses trying to enter into Japan, other than their lack of business cards or things? What did you notice as a Japanese person working with those Kiwi businesses?
Probably I'm saying the same thing as before, but New Zealand companies are trying to get outcome as quick as possible. That, of course, it is true because we want to have return as soon as possible. But Japanese is still conservative country and it's conservative society, and it takes time before we can see the outcome. So for Kiwi companies, I want to say let's see a little bit longer time, and let's have a plan, and let's understand some time before we can have real success. And I'm aware in New Zealand, Maori company has longer term for their business plans, and some Maori company has 100 years or 1,000 years of business plan. So I don't say we take such long period, but we can have something longer period before we see the success.
Did you see
That's
some
yeah.
pattern in the, like, for example, New Zealanders wanted in 1 year, I want to get my money back or see some success, whereas it took 5 years? Or did you see any pattern in the length of time?
I think longer New Zealand company is in this country. They have success. Like we can name these companies, right? Like Fonterra or Anzuko or recently Les Mills having
Les Mills,
success.
yes.
Yeah, they are doing very good in this country, I think. So it's not only New Zealand company, even Japanese, or I should say American companies are looking for some wins with a short period of time. But since New Zealand has a good culture, so let's do the job until we win this country. All the successful New Zealand companies are in this country for longer term, longer period. So I do hope my employers, GNS and Geo40 and other Geosam companies in New Zealand can have such view. And I believe they do.
That's great.
And how about future? Are you seeing any trends in Japan that you think could be quite useful for New Zealanders to think about? It might be in your area, geothermal. It might be something that you are seeing in Japan that could be a good opportunity or a good trend for New Zealanders to be involved in.
Yeah, I think apparently sustainable or green something is a good trend in Japan as well. This is global trend, but Japan especially, even manufacturers or even IT companies are looking for sustainable or green things. So if New Zealand companies can make the story with this sustainability, I think that can be a key for success in this country, I believe. This is my personal opinion.
Very good. Anything you want to ask us? Anything you want to ask some New Zealanders in Japan?
Yeah, my question for you is New Zealanders also having a community? You guys, Jane and Catherine, are working together as both Kiwis, right? And are you having a New Zealand community? Since I was in New Zealand for 36 days and I was trying to find Japanese community. And if I find Japanese, for example, in Taupo is a very small country, place, and found Japanese working there, I was very happy to speak then in Japanese. And you guys, Kiwis, also has such community and such experience to find Kiwis in Japan?
Good question.
Very good
I think it
question.
depends what you're doing. So, for example, I don't have any New Zealanders in my same town here so much, maybe one, maybe two. But online, I can meet many New Zealanders through different activities. For example, Kiwi Mums Facebook group. We are all mothers we have Japanese husbands, but we live in Japan, many of us, and we have children. So we have a kind of online community, but we can't meet each other very much. And I think that's something we're trying to achieve with this podcast, isn't it, Catherine, is to make this a community for New Zealanders. They can hear other New Zealanders speaking to each other about Japan, about things we care about, and they can get to know each other a little. And hopefully in the future, we'll have more opportunities for people to come together in real life, and they'll know each other a little bit more because they had a chance to listen on this show and work together, collaborate, create more bridges between Japan and New Zealand, just like you're doing as well, Yoshifumi. And also that group is not only for New Zealanders, but also for Japanese people who love New Zealand too. So we think it's something that is, maybe could do with some work. And maybe bring those small groups together in a bigger group. That, Catherine, you're a member of some groups too, aren't you, that are sort of New Zealand based, but they're not necessarily connected?
Not necessarily connected, indeed. That's the point, is they're quite distributed and not always talking to each other, siloed perhaps. So bringing them together through this podcast is really, as Jane just said, one of our aims, to make a community. Kiwis come here and get on with just their business or doing what their activity is, if it's teaching or if it's in another kind of company. They don't always think of themselves as a New Zealand group, but we think there's a lot of magic that can happen within the group. And often, if you have the New Zealand Embassy have a Waitangi Day, or Matariki, I think, coming up, where New Zealanders come together and Japanese who've been in New Zealand, and you find there's a lot of people here who are in the community but don't come together as a community. So we hope to be one of the magnets for the New Zealanders in the community and Japanese who love New Zealand, and bring them together through this podcast.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What I understand is while Kiwis looks quite independent, but sometimes you guys also getting some community and getting together as well. And I understand these communities can enhance or support our strengths and capability, and they cheer up we are trying to do, and for having success in the other country, I think can support from people who understand the same culture and language culture can be a good segue for having a success.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, or something that you thought we might ask you and we didn't ask you that you wanted to share with us? Tell us.
Yeah, only one thing.
Hmm.
Probably I should say I'm sharing my personal opinion here, and
Yes.
I'm not representing GNS Science,
Yes.
Yeah,
especially.
we
Since
totally
they are quite-
Thank you.
understand.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's been
Well,
lovely to get to know you today, and thank you for telling us all about how great New Zealand geothermal industry is. We had no idea.
yeah.
Very interested to learn more about this and see how this goes between New Zealand and Japan in the future. It's a great chance for growth for both countries, I feel, right, Catherine?
Yep.
This is
Yes,
fantastic.
totally. And thank you so much for all you're doing and being so
Mm.
passionate. You're obviously a bridge. We can see from your face that you are really enjoying this. And we just want to congratulate you for taking the plunge, for saying yes to working with the companies you're with and being that bridge and being an amazing jandal in Japan. Congratulations. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and stay tuned until we success.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what a gold mine of information about geothermal energy. That's not quite the right analogy to use there. Maybe
Analogy.
it's like need a new analogies. Geothermal energy, New Zealand leading the way. How awesome is that?
A geyser of information, perhaps,
Maybe, yeah.
frothing
There you go.
over. Wow, amazing. I loved it. And I really sort of one of the big points was just don't rush it, right? That
Yeah.
Yoshifumi was talking about. Don't try and be in, set up quickly, try and get a quick outcome, turn around as quick as possible.
Mm.
Take your time.
And even he, as a Japanese person, is struggling with that. Like he's like, I want my success, I
That
want
was
it to happen,
interesting.
but I know I have to wait. And
Yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah. Even
Mm.
Japanese people feel this stress too, right? They want to have
Yeah.
success. Yeah.
Take
Maybe
time.
just a little bit more with the being able to be patient, right? That muscle that we potentially don't have as New
Yeah.
Zealanders because we haven't learned it so much growing up, right?
I think people are getting the hang of it now, that it takes a little bit of time at the front end to get things in place, but because Japanese are very attuned into detail.
Mm.
But once you've done that and you get over that wall, shall we say, you're set up pretty well.
Sky's
But
the
it was
limit.
interesting too, yes, indeed, that he was wanting to get going and get going and get going. He's obviously very passionate about this particular
enthusiastic.
area. Very
Yeah.
exciting.
Loved his very actionable things about how to get a good office space and to make that a priority. Don't just have a hot desk if you can afford an office. Get an office, get it in a good place, and be aware of what that address is going to say about your business, depending on where you get your office, right?
Exactly. And obviously choosing a great location as he has, it's easy for people to get to off the train. Around the circuit, the Yamanote line, it's also really easy to get up to the embassy. Perfect decision on the location. And it made me think too, when people look at my business card, Jane, they always remark about the address.
They
And
do.
I
I've
thought
heard
about
them
it. I
saying
just thought
that.
they're looking
Yeah.
at my address, but they're actually realizing, oh, you are based here. Oh, this is where you are, and putting you in the, oh, that's kind of genuine box, which is good to know.
Yeah, right. I've heard them saying that to you all the time, but never clicked
You
or
really
put
thought
the
about it.
dots together. Oh, that's what they're doing. They are categorizing you. You're in this area of town. You must be the real deal.
It's good.
Not in certain dodgy areas of Tokyo which you want to avoid, right?
I also think Yoshifumi had a great idea there about Japanese language and not just forcing yourself to try and learn Japanese to come into Japan or be an English speaker proficiently. The idea is to communicate across culture, and as human beings, you'll find a way. So I thought that was also a great tip as well.
Yeah.
It's very important to invest in language, and I think long term being here, language capability is really important. But at the outset, that's not the first thing to be thinking about coming into Japan. Maybe you learn a few phrases, but you don't worry too much about that. You don't need to know the history of Japan, but be able to understand the other person, listen to them, and communicate as people to people. I think that was one of his main tips.
Yeah. And then ask them to teach you, and they would love to teach you a few phrases, I'm sure. What do I say here? What was that you just said? Can you teach me that? Thank you so much. You've just made a wonderful connection with that person who taught you Gochisousama or Itadakimasu or whatever the phrases. Yeah, it's an opportunity. Yeah.
And going back to the very beginning, he talked about wanting this particular business in geothermal to be sustainable. And that was his foresight into the trend that he saw coming too, around green nantoka, green something, and sustainable business as a trend to look out for. So some really fantastic tips there today.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. We have more wonderful jandals coming soon. See you on the next one.
Bye. Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out our guests' links in the show notes.
This podcast is brought to you today by Catherine O'Connell Law and Pod Launch with Jane. If you have a great story you think should be on the show, come and find us on LinkedIn or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Mata ne!